Hey y'all, happy Saturday. It's Krishan, the founder of Blaxit Global and the host of the Blaxit Global podcast. I am so excited that you are all here today. Today is a topic that, goodness gracious, was getting a lot of buzz. So I'm excited to dive in. But before we dive in and bring our wonderful panel here, I want to, get us all hyped up. Say hello. Let us know where you're joining from. Say hello in the comments. Let's see. We've got Lynette. Hey, Lynette. Peace and blessings. Yes, Craig is here from Philly. Hey. So we've got representation out in here. Oh my goodness, KF. Yes. Awesome. So excited that you're here. I assume that you can see and hear us or hear me. So, want to get some housekeeping out of the way. Some of you might have caught an earlier live that I did on our Instagram page. So today's Saturday. Monday is the season 4 finale of the Blaxit Global podcast. I cannot believe season 4 is coming to an end. Oh my gosh, this season was incredible. I hope you think so too. So I will be wrapping up the season, with my usual talk. And some people have submitted some questions, so I will be answering those during my wrap up. But we will be back for season 5, and that will begin in January of 2023, largely because, drum roll, I will be making the big part of step 1 of my journey to my move abroad in 2023. So 2023 is a busy year. My last chickadee will be leaving the nest, aptly for today's topic, and also making the move. So juggling everything, I want to make sure I get everything recorded and done and also get some rest. So I will be recording during the hiatus, but definitely keep listening to the podcast. Show us some love by subscribing to the podcast and also leaving a rating, 5 stars preferably, and a review because it helps people find our content, inspire others, and grow. Speaking of growing, help our YouTube channel grow because we will be, and I will be, doing more YouTube lives during the hiatus. So, part of that reason is why I want you to subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell because I'll be making announcements that'll be useful to you. And as part of my journey getting ready to move to Portugal, a lot of people are interested. So I want to separate my journey from that of my guests. So I just launched our membership on our YouTube channel. So you can become a member. There are 2 levels. One is a tourist visa. And so there's some perks there for those that join. And then for those that do the residency visa, you'll get extra content. So there'll be special lives that will talk about like my journey, different content because I'll be doing some travels in preparation. And if you are a diehard listener of the Blaxit Global podcast, you know that one of the things that I've talked about is family and friends and sharing that part of my journey. I've not done that yet on the show. And so this new content for our members will be available to you. So there'll be some special guests. Let's put it that way. So I'm excited. I'm going to jump back into the comments. And before I forget, there's some other big announcements. And I want you to stay to the end or near the end because I'll reveal that then. But I just want to say hi to some folks here. Hey, Denise is joining from Morocco. Awesome. Hello. Margaret. Hey. Francis. Hey, Francis, how are you? It is so good to have you here. Trinette. Hello. Hey, Mocha Mosaic. Hey. And oh my goodness, Kelly. Hey. How are you? Definitely tag a friend. Tell them that they want to be here on this live. Kim is here from Vegas. Hey. So we are going to dive in. Without any further ado, I am going to bring up our wonderful esteemed panel. So give me a second as I bring in all the lovelies. to the stream, and I'm going to bring them all in. And then y'all ladies can, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, Lorraine. Lorraine, I cannot see you. Let's see. Lorraine, I
I
cannot
can
see
see
you, but
you.
I hope you can see me and hear
Yeah, I can
me.
see you. It
I
says that
cannot.
everyone can see me, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay, I'm gonna take you out for a second, but
Okay.
and then this way, because I can see you. If y'all can see Lorraine,
No, I
can you?
can't.
You can't.
No.
Okay. And
Okay.
then for
Hold on.
those that are
Let's see.
watching, if you can see, can you let us know? Yeah, I
You
don't
know
think
what
they
I'll
can
do?
see.
I'll
No
drop
worries.
and come back in. How's that?
I'll see you when you pop back in, and
No?
I'll pop you
Okay.
back in. All right. This is live TV, y'all. It's on YouTube. So while Lorraine is working those little technical things out, we are going to welcome the rest of the panel. We have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful discussion. I know there are a lot of people that are excited, so I'm just not going to hold back. And so we have, I know I've been following her for a while. I know, if y'all ain't following, y'all got to follow. Anne Marie, who is Bold Girl Will Travel and the anti-HR lady. You have to follow her on Instagram because she is showing everybody how to live their best life in their 50s, solo travel, all the tips. I am so excited that she is joining us today. She made the leap at 53 and moved to San Miguel de Allende. Ow! So she is here, and I am so excited. And we've got Lorraine back. That's awesome. And we are also joined. Natalie is joining us today, the hot goddess who is getting ready to make her incredible journey abroad to Portugal. Yay, yay, yay. So excited to have her here to talk about her journey steps. There's a lot to unpack there. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. We've got Krystal, who is repping the getting ready to make her scouting trip a reality. She's planning on moving to Mexico. And the lovely Lorraine, who is also planning a move to Portugal. So I am excited. I know y'all are excited. And the reason why we're so excited is because each of our guests represent different journey steps. And one of the reasons why this conversation was really, really important for me to have is because I know that representation matters. I've had a lot of guests on the Blaxit Global podcast, and I consider it an honor and a privilege to highlight these stories. And so I know how important representation is. And I know that there are so many people that think that maybe they missed their moment, maybe they missed their mark, but these ladies are here to show you and tell you it is never too late. So I'm big on energy, and I'm sure you are too. So help our panelists know that you are with us by using the hashtag never too late so we can inspire more folks. So with that, I want to start with Krystal. So
Okay. The newest person goes first.
yeah, right, exactly. So what we're gonna do is we'll go around robin. You'll each tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just go in and have some questions. And I just want to make our guests know, or actually those that are watching know, whether you're live or you're joining us in the replay, please feel free to put your questions in the comments. Just put a Q so it's just easier to identify that from the chat roll, and we will answer questions as well. So, Krystal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a new empty nester, working as an accountant, and I like accounting. And even though I don't like having a job, I've always wanted that sense of freedom. For those of you who probably believe in astrology, that may be the Aquarius in me. I just like to be, free.
Mhm.
And I like to, when I turned 50, I left my job working in downtown Chicago to take back control of my time. But I think God leaves us like little clues along the way, breadcrumbs, or push you in a dark room with a flashlight and you see a little bit here, but you don't know where the light switch is yet. So that was in 2019, January 2019. So we know what happened the other end of 2019, the pandemic, which led to the global lockdown. And I, by that time, I was, making money here and there, Uber driving, trying to, I know I wanted to do something, but wasn't sure what.
Mm-hmm.
And I started watching travel shows. The first one was called The Joy of Touring. So I binge watched that. I had a small list of 3 countries that I wanted to visit. Within, after watching several travel shows, which went into the YouTube channel, I started to notice, okay, am I too black to travel outside the United States? I kind of
Mm.
thought that because I thought that only, people who don't look like me do that. Then I heard about this lady. I can't remember her name. Jessica Nabungo,
Yes,
something like
Mbongo,
that.
yes.
Yes, she was one of the first Black women to travel to over 100 countries. And that inspired me. And that, started my list of 3 countries that I wanted to visit. And then after, I would say 6 months later, that list grew to like 25 countries.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was like, I'm watching this episode. It's like, oh, that's a nice place. Jot that down. Oh, that looks nice. Jot that down. Then it led me to YouTube because I wanted something that was more representative of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I started exploring different YouTube travelers, looked up Black travelers abroad. Then I ran across an article, I think it was in USA Today, titled I'm Leaving and I'm Just Not Coming Back. And it featured 3 African Americans who left the United States and expatriated to different countries. So it kind of set a light off. It's like, maybe I could just simply move. I don't have to come back here. I never even explored that option. So one thing led to another, led me to Stephanie Perry's channel, which led me to the Blaxit Global Facebook group, where I met Krystal, and I got a wealth of information from that. And then just started feeding myself. I felt like I was like in the Matrix, who, when Neo was learning jujitsu by just being plugged in with information. I
Yes,
mean,
that's you
everything was just
in there.
downloaded. I mean, day and night.
That's
And
awesome.
I saw Anne Marie first on the Exodus Summit
Oh my gosh, look at that.
3 months after the event. So I got the replay and they kept saying, oh, you don't have to watch it all in 48 hours. But I was just crazy like that. And I literally watched every video in 48 hours. I fell asleep, woke up, watched it again. But it
Wow.
was just so much information
Mm-hmm.
that I was just, feeding myself with it and feeding myself with it because it created a serious paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, one, I can leave. I don't have to deal with what I don't want to deal with. I can change my environment. Two, I don't need a lot of money to leave. I just need cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And coupled with what I already knew growing up, I was just putting all the pieces together. And then finally, it was just, I started actually writing out an action plan.
Wow. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I want you to put a pin on that because I want to get to the action plan steps because you talked a little bit about, how you were following the breadcrumbs and you had your matrix moment. And so I think that's something that I know I can relate to as well as those that are watching. and Anne Marie as well. And so you talked about Exodus Summit. Y'all know Exodus Summit is coming back in October, so be ready. And so Krystal mentioned that Anne Marie was featured in Exodus Summit. So with that, Anne Marie, like, how did this all start for you? Oh, I think you might be on mute, my dear.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Krystal, for having me. I appreciate it very much. Well, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but I would say that there are three things that happened that resulted in me making the change that I made and making it in the way that I made it. The first was that I took a job in international development in 2016. And I'd worked in international development before. I'm a licensed attorney, trained attorney. I've worked in HR for 25 plus years and overseen operations, not just HR, but operations, global security, field ops, everything to do with running the inside structure of an organization. But before I took that job, I had been kind of relegated to working inside of the office. And in that job, they kind of specifically told me they would want me to travel, right? So I started traveling internationally quite a bit starting in 2017. We had 25 plus offices all over the world, and I started traveling to those offices. And one of the first trips I went on was a trip to Ghana and Kenya to visit our offices there. We're rolling out global security training. And for a lot of the staff in those offices, I was the first Black woman they had ever seen in charge, like the first woman they ever saw from the company who came into the field offices and everybody. I remember one woman saying she'd never seen a Black woman tell white people what to do before because most of my team were white. And I remember going to Cape Coast Castle to see the castle and to see the door of no return and going on the tour and standing at the top of the castle looking out at the sea. And I thought to myself, I could leave. I could leave the United States, right? And it was I remember calling my father and telling him, I finally understand where we come from. There were things that I saw, the food that they were talking, people were eating, the women with the baskets on their heads. My parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. It reminded me of things that I saw as a child with my grandmother in the village where my mother was born. A lot of the same customs and things. And I've said to my father, I finally understand. And I wish you could come here because I finally understand where we belong, where we come from. And so, but then you go back to the United States and you go back to life. And the microaggressions, the gaslighting, the general bullshit of being a professional woman in a majority white, and especially majority white female environment. And you kind of forget about it. And at the same time, my mother had been ill with Alzheimer's probably for about 4 years. And in 2019, I was traveling in Thailand when the whole thing with COVID broke. We went on lockdown. And so this first thing was that trip to Africa, where it occurred to me. In 2019, thereabouts, I was asked to do coaching, which is, white people like to send Black people to coaching when they think you're not doing things the way they think you should, you're not being subservient enough, you have problems. It's hardly ever to develop you as they do with themselves. It's always to message you that something's wrong with you. But I took the coaching opportunity to hire a Black woman. And in one of our first sessions in 2019, she asked me, in a perfect world, what would you do? And I said, well, if I could do whatever I wanted, I would pack up and I would leave the United States. And she said to me, then why don't you? And I couldn't answer her. I was like, and I started listing reasons. Oh, my house, my kid, and she said, I still don't hear the reason why you can't do it. Right. And so she said, instead of us dealing with all these things, because, she was like, we both know there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with the environment you're being forced to work in, but there's nothing wrong with you, right? Let's use this time to figure out the best way for you to respond to this environment, but also for you to map a plan to do what it is that you really want to do, right? So we started talking at each of our sessions about that, right? So in the midst of that, COVID happens, and that summer, my mother died in July 20th, 2020. And my mother was a woman who was very educated, never really got to do everything that she wanted, but was a very educated woman. But she was always afraid. She didn't like to fly. She didn't like to, go places. She was always like, where are you going now? Because once I started traveling, I was like always going somewhere. And when I would travel for work, I would always tack a trip on for myself, either at the beginning or the end. But I always used it as an opportunity for me to see another place that I wanted to see. And so when my mother died, I really started thinking about, and with COVID, which I think was a huge blessing, to be able to sit at home and really think about what I wanted. Right. And to talk about going back to the office started midsummer. And I was like, I'm not going back to the office. There's no way I'm going back to deal with these people in person ever again. And so it became more urgent for me then to figure out what I wanted to do, because I think anyone who's lost a parent understands there's something that happens inside of you when that happens, that makes you understand the urgency of time, of now, and the value of time. Because now I realize I don't have a mother. I have a wonderful father, but a wonderful father is not the same as having a mother. And now I have to be my own mother, right? Yeah. And I have to look out for what's best for me now, because I don't have a person who's going to be able to do that anymore for me. Because my mother did it her entire life, right? It doesn't end when you're a parent. It ends when you close your eyes. That's when it ends. But 6 weeks after my mother died, my nephew died at 28. And he and I were very close. He was very accomplished. He spoke Japanese. We used to talk about what part of the world we were traveling to. We always had planned to travel together, never got to do it. And I think when that happened in September is when, and then in September, I also did the Exodus Summit. I listened to the first Exodus Summit, is when I was like, I have to leave and I'm going to do it as soon as I can. So I decided, where's open? Mexico was open, right? So that's why I picked Mexico, right? I had originally actually planned to visit Portugal, couldn't go because of COVID. Mexico was open. So I was like, we're working remotely. I work for an international development company. I can work from anywhere. So I just informed the company, I will be working from Mexico for the rest of the year from different places. And I just started traveling around Mexico between October 2020 to the end of December. I started traveling to different places to see how I felt about it. And then I decided when I got back in December, I would travel some more. And so from January to March, I traveled some more. I visited San Miguel de Allende. I loved it. I leased my apartment before I left in February 2021. I got there, I saw it. I was like, this is it. I signed the lease, paid, and went home. And so when I got back to the States in March of 2021, I had already found a place to move to. During that interim, me and my coach also negotiated my exit from the company that I didn't want to work for anymore. So I was out of there by the end of March, got back in April, packed my stuff up, moved my son into the basement of the house, and I left on Mother's Day, May 9, 2021. Woo! And so I say this to say that you should have a plan. I think it's critical to have a plan, but you don't need a 12-point plan. You don't need a 6-month plan. The hardest thing is to decide you're going to go, and to decide that it's worth doing for yourself and that you deserve it. I think the rest will come much easily if you really believe that. If you believe that you deserve a life that's different, if you believe that you deserve to live somewhere where you're not going to be a second-class citizen, the time to decide to go is now, and the time to go is now. Don't do a bunch of navel gazing. You don't need a 12-point plan. You don't need to be rich. White folks have been moving to Mexico and all over the world forever, and they're not rich, right? What you need is to realize that you deserve it and you're worth it. And then take it from there.
Wow. That was a sermon. That was a sermon. Yes, 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 yes. And you lit up the comments with that. Wow. Wow. Okay. We're going to get back to that too. Natalie, I want to talk to you and learn about your journey and your Neo moment. We've been talking about like where was the journey step. So, what was that for you?
So, thank you so much for having me. This is just a thrill, and I never would have thought I would have been here several years ago. I'm a big believer that there's never a wrong time to take the right path, that you just need to give yourself permission to take the path. And as Anne-Marie, as you said, just give yourself permission to be happy and do what's right for you. And I think for so many of us, the catalyst for this kind of change can come on the heels of loss. So in 2019, I decided to retire from my second career as a teacher at 59, following the death of my father and the ending of a long-time committed relationship. And I just had to figure out what was next for me. I knew that what was at that time wasn't meant to be my space. And so I needed to figure out what was next for me. I started researching the ability to retire at 59. It was way ahead of what I was planning to do. I figured out if I could just, like you said, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to have that $1 million, just figure out a way. And I became very frugal and slashed a lot of expenses. I started researching where are countries where retirees can move and live cheaply or cheaper than the United States. And, I got a list of about 10 countries. So I want to live on the ocean, but I don't want to deal with hurricanes. I don't want to deal with the monsoon season. If evacuation is a regular thing, that's not for me. I don't want, really large bugs the size of my head and snakes and stuff like that. So I'm like, I have very specific requirements. So Portugal's like, okay, on the water and not really, usually not in the path of hurricanes. I'm like, I'm going to try it. So, and here I am, and I am afraid of flying. I'm afraid of heights. I'm a recovering social media avoider, not Facebook. I do nothing. This was so not my wheelhouse. And I decided, though, it was time to give myself permission to do something different and take that path. And I put in my notice, I retired, and decided I was going to visit Portugal to see what it was like. Then, for whatever crazy reason, I thought, I've never done solo travel before. 59 and have not done solo travel. So I started researching. I found this Airtrex, I think it was, and they helped put together an itinerary. And I ended up doing a 70-day around the world trip with one carry-on bag. And I did Portugal, Morocco, Egypt, Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, and came back and I thought, oh, hell yeah, I'm liking this. This is for me. This is what I'm going to do this. And then COVID was like, no, you're not. So I didn't go anywhere. But during that time, I started taking some online classes. Writing was a thing in another life, and I wanted to get back to that. And so I started taking this memoir class. And as part of that, I had to develop in a digital marketing class, and I had to develop a website. So I developed the Hot Goddess, but nobody could see it. It was just for my class. And the hot, by the way, is for hot flashes. So, because, yeah, like what? Anyway, so I developed that, and then I started writing a blog, but it was just for my class. And then I started a memoir class online because we're in lockdown. What the heck? And I'm writing these kind of cathartic things, but no one can see it. And it's on WordPress, and they kept saying, nobody can see you. press launch. I'm like, no, I'm not, no. And then I decided for my 61st birthday, okay, go ahead. So I pressed launch and then everybody could see it. This is a little scary. Then another interest of mine, this is the Aquarian in me, okay, so because we are like all over, is bourbon. And I thought, I'm going to learn how to make that. So I contacted a CEO of a distillery here and proposed a midlife reimagined apprenticeship. I said I would work for free for 12 weeks. I just want to learn how to do this. So there I was with all these guys and these 500-pound barrels and all this. And so I worked in a distillery as the 61-year-old intern, only woman. I was like, whatever, just, I'd come home smelling like, please don't let me get pulled over because I'm totally smelling like whiskey. It's not going to be good. And did that for 12 weeks. Then they hired me and I worked a little bit there. And I really, at this point, was not thinking about moving. I was going to wait until 65 to go. But then my house sold. Like, I just kind of floated it out there when everything was crazy last year, and it sold. And that gave me I started thinking, why wait? Why wait? So at 62 in January, I started researching the residency visa in Portugal. And I got my approval. I got my visa approved last week. So yay! Sent off my passport to get stamped, and we'll be leaving next month or at the end of the month. So I am just really ecstatic. And I do want to say, because I was just nodding my head as Anne-Marie was talking about how short life is, because I've had 6 friends my age or younger have died. And I mean, stuff just happens out of nowhere. And so don't wait, just go ahead. And if I can do it, anybody can do it, because like I said, I was a little chicken. I'm like, I don't like flying. I don't do a window seat. I'm like, but giving yourself permission to be happy and doing what you need to do is so important. So it took a long time. It's not easy to get that visa. I started in January with the research, and it's August by the time I got it, but it's possible. And you do not need to pay thousands of dollars to hire consultants to do it. You can do it yourself. And thank you. I have gotten so much help and good information from Blaxit Global, from the Expat app. I can't even remember now. So many different online. Because I did finally, before I went on my solo trip, friends were like, why don't you get on like Facebook or Instagram so we just know you're not dead while you're traveling? It's like, oh, okay. So that's why I started Instagram, and I would just post little things about where I was. So anyway, this is all very new to me, and I'm having a ball. And in Portugal, where I'm going to be living on the Silver Coast, not in Lisbon, it's about an hour north of Lisbon in Lorraine. You know what they have? A brandy distillery.
Oh, my goodness.
Walking distance. I already mapped it out. So, yep, I'm already planning for another midlife reimagined apprenticeship, learning how to make brandy. So we'll see.
I know where I'm going to go when I land. Thank you for that, Natalie. And I know I want to circle back on some of the things that you said as well. And Lorraine, please tell us about yourself and your Neo moment or your Matrix moment. Oh, I can't hear you, my dear. You want to try again?
Can you hear me now?
You sound very faint.
So my
There
matrix.
you are.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Hold on just a sec. I'm going to bring the volume up. Is that better?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
That should be a little better.
Yes. Thank you.
So my matrix moment started when I was probably about 5 years old. I was fortunate enough to have a father who had a 5th grade education, taught himself 4 languages, was a tailor and a musician, and traveled as a Black man who was born at the turn of the century, essentially. Yeah. So I just remember him telling me about the places he went to, how he would go to Paris and he would stay there till he ran out of money. Then he'd come back here and make more money. Then he'd make his money. He'd go to Morocco until he ran out of money. So I thought everybody did this. So I go into 1st grade thinking, well, everybody moves overseas. And so that's where my I think it's in my DNA now. I haven't gotten to travel as much as he did. I've done Paris and Italy and, parts of North America and the Caribbean and Mexico. But what I have done is I will get up and move a heartbeat. And you can ask my 2 children who are in their 30s. I will pack up a house on a weekend and just go someplace. I've called up Harris now, and I'll call them up on a Thursday and say, you got a job somewhere? And they'll say yes, and I'll pack my kids up and I'll go. So I don't have any fear. I probably don't have any sense is more like it when it comes to that. I believe in having a plan, but I think the plan finds you a lot of times. That's how it works. So I had intended to move overseas a lot sooner, but I wanted to get my kids settled. And now that they are adults, it's really time. And once I hit my 60s, that's when the hammer dropped, because I started thinking, I'm not worried about running out of time. Whatever time I have, it just has to be enough. The key for me is, what do I need to do to move this forward? I was in a relationship that really wasn't serving me, wasn't quite ready to let it go. But then I started thinking, if I stay in this, will I get what I want the rest of my life? And it was like, nope, had to go. Then I decided the house that I had bought.
Oops, sorry to interrupt you, Lorraine. You're cutting in and out.
It's
Um,
gotta go.
Can you hear me?
So I started to put it on the market, and I said, I'm giving my money to a Black broker. Yeah, but it's my internet.
No worries, no worries. I just you're cutting in and out, so you were good for a while, and then I lost you as you were talking about your transition and selling your house. I'm going to pull you out for a bit, Lorraine, so you can adjust your audio. And then when I see you pop back in, I'll pop you back up. Okay? All right. Awesome. So Lorraine is going to work on that, and then she's going to rejoin us. And so while we do that, each of you were having, your conversations, and what I heard as a common thread was this like mindset shift, right? This awakening, this transformation, this feeling of worthiness. And so I want to make sure that, I come back to that primarily because, I have these conversations with people on the podcast, as well as, people that I coach. And one of the things that, people struggle with is this belief of, can I do this? How much do I need? All of these things that we've kind of layered on to us. And so as you all were talking, the comment section lit up. So in order to give our, our viewers an opportunity, because there are a lot of questions, and then this will also give Lorraine time to come back and we can pick up where she was leaving off. We'll start with some questions and then we'll circle back. Oh, wait, let's see. Wait a minute. Lorraine might be back. There she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Right here. I was trying to fill time, but you came back. Awesome.
I work in technology. I just can't get it to work. That's what I like to say.
No, it's all good. You came back. So let's finish your story, because you were starting to talk about, the decision to sell your house after, you had your kids settled and where they were. So I wanted to make sure that we really talked about your story arc.
Okay. So I sell the house, but what's so funny is the broker says to me, what are you going to do? And I said to her, I want to move to Portugal. She said, that's funny. I'm getting ready to move there too. Okay, so here we go. Everything is in divine order. So the house sells in 4 days. I get 4 offers, make my money, out. I'm living in Tampa right now because I said I'm renting because I'm not getting locked into anything else because I got to be out of here. Okay. So my daughter is here. Then I said, you know what? I need a different job because this one's not working for me. So I put it out to God in the universe. It's like, just find me what I need. I'll be open. Job finds me on LinkedIn, offers me 3 positions, fully remote. Boom. Got that. So I'm selling my stuff now. I do my scouting trip at the end of September. I will be out of here by next year. So
Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. It just is an example of, each of you, it's all the same in this respect. Like when you made that decision, and my mind, what I heard from each of you is like you had this kind of like kernel, right, that started the like curiosity. And then there was obviously, mindset work that had to be done and was done. And I know Anne Marie talked about that with the coach that she worked with. And then having like, again, like the aperture is just opening a little bit, but it was like each time it's like when you started to signal to the universe that this is what you're doing, this is what your declaration is, everything starts to fall into place, either the house gets sold or the kids leave the nest, or another opportunity presents itself to say, hey, this is a sign that life is short, that this time you have is precious, and there is still time to live your best life, to do what you want to do, and to live with intention and try new things, right? That was something that I heard from you, Natalie, when you talking about whiskey. Oh my goodness, and being an intern, right? And Lorraine with the remote job. And so, whether it's in the Blaxit Global Passport group, or, when we talk on the podcast, I think it's like when you set that intention, the rest works itself out. And so that is like something that is really, really, ring true for me as I listen to each of you. And I know there's like now like 80 some odd people in the comments. So I want to definitely, what we'll do is like take an opportunity to answer a couple questions, and then, we'll jump back to the discussion, because I know like there's so many questions that are going on here. So I'm going to try my best to go into order. And so I just want to repeat to those of you who are watching, we are loving the vibe. Definitely use hashtag never too late. We're feeding off of your energy. And definitely put a Q, if you would, before your question. That just helps me identify really where the question is, aside from the chat roll. So Kim asked to Natalie, did you find an oceanfront near the metro station, or is a car needed?
Hi, Kim. So I am moving without a car, but I am not near a metro. I am about a 2-mile walk to Lorraine. I guess I'm pronouncing that correctly, where there are buses. And so I can take a bus north up the coast. I can take it down to Lisbon, but I will be walking or Ubering. They have Uber or taxi to Lorraine. So I am not going to be buying a car. I am looking at an electric bike. There's a lot of hills, so we need that electric push, but I will not be having a car. So that it wasn't my intent to move there, Kim, but that's where I found a place that I liked on the water. So I will just be getting my steps in. We'll see how it goes.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Yeah, I'm not having the car. I'm looking forward to ditching the car. Like, ditch the apartment, ditch the car, like, hey. And we have a question from Glass Half Full. I think this one is for Anne Marie. Thinking of moving to Mexico, understanding is that with pre-existing conditions, I'll be denied even private health insurance. What do you do for insurance? Oop, I think you might be on mute, my dear. Let me unmute you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay. I purchased private health insurance in San Miguel that allows me access to any private hospital in Mexico. Um, and I didn't really have any difficulty getting it. I used a broker, kind of compared plans and purchased the one that made the most sense for me. I don't think you should necessarily give up. I think you should do some research to see what's available. Talk to both. There are brokers that are work primarily with expats, but I would also suggest talking to brokers that are Mexican, wherever you want to go, because they might be able to find something for you that you might not be aware. So don't just go by what you hear in a group. I know a lot of us do that. Do your own homework. I would really recommend that. Okay, can I say something?
Yeah, of
You talked
course.
about um, the light going on and understanding your value. And I work as an HR consultant, and in my work, I primarily work with Black women who I help exit hostile work environments, usually discriminatory work environments, with severance pay. Um, with my intention is hopefully they'll use that money to leave the United States. They'll use it to do something. And one of the biggest issues I always find is that we do not value ourselves, and I understand why, because the United States does not message to us that we're worth very much, especially Black women. I often say we're third class citizens, not even second. And so, one of the most important things is to realize that you have worth and that you have value and that you don't deserve to be in a work environment that doesn't serve you or that treats you badly. You don't deserve to live in a country that doesn't treat you well and doesn't treat you like a first class citizen. And I think a lot of us need to do work to get there, because once you get there, these things become very obvious, right?
Mm,
But if you're not there, it doesn't, right?
that
So I
is so
think it's
true.
very important for us to think about what do we think our worth is? How do
Mm.
you really feel about your worth and your value in this world? What do you think you deserve?
I think, you raise a great point, and that is something that is a constant. And it's very difficult when you grow up and you have an environment that doesn't play back to you your worthiness. You don't see yourself, because we're all around the same like age conversation, right? The span about, give or take like 15 years is, growing up, maybe not seeing your images of yourself on TV, playing with dolls that don't look like you, hearing, either, especially as we got into the 90s and to early 2000s, right? Music and videos that, misogyny, things that are not consistent with affirming us in our womanhood and our feelings of worthiness. And so, and this is more of a question, to any of you that can answer, um, is what do you do, or what worked for you, or what works for you when you're getting all of these messages, and how do you start to like filter the noise, the BS, and say, hey, you know what? I know my worth. Even if society, on a daily basis wants to throw a gut punch, I know that I can do this. I know that I'm worthy. I know that I can speak up for myself. Like, what either tips, tools, whatever works for you?
I'm going to admit that I was 60 years old before I even got to that place. That my biggest issue was just the negative self-talk. And I can't, I shouldn't, I should, why didn't I? It was really pervasive, the negative self-talk. And that, talking to different women, I realized, oh, that's not just me. A lot of us have that voice that is trying to undermine what would make us happy and what we deserve. And I really feel that it took me till 60 to say, what? No, no. I do have worth. I am worthy of being happy. I can make this happen. And I just need to trust in myself. So that was huge. It just came about. And I think through following other women, writing, reading, it just helped me get to a place where I felt more confident to take that step. And that's the most important piece. The other noise doesn't matter. That's the most important piece. So and it took me a long time. I'll admit it. It took me a while to get there.
So, Krystal, I wanted to follow up on that. Um, the lesson that I learned when I was a little girl was that people are going to always underestimate you. Get used to it. And so he said, you're a small woman, you're a small Black woman. You know, your presence isn't tremendous based on what they think it's supposed to be. And so they're going to try to put you into a box. You don't have to fit into that box. And so I never fell for the trappings of, I need this title, you know, I want the corner office, because it's not for me. You know how young people say when you listen to their music and you say it doesn't make sense, they're like, it's not for you. So I was okay with that. And what I did, which doesn't work for everyone, is I had tech skills. So if I didn't like something, I would leave. I wasn't going to wait for the review. I wasn't going to wait for the salary increase. I would go somewhere else and get my stuff. And so that worked for me. And I'm not saying it works for everyone, but I've been fortunate with that. But it's like, again, you're saying it's about finding out what your self-worth is. I don't really care if they like what I'm doing all the time. If I was a consultant and you didn't like my work, you wouldn't renew my contract. We don't need to go through this review process with you. That's a waste. So it's been a different kind of journey for me. For me, it's been more of, can I let the life here go that I don't particularly care for, but it's complacency.
Right.
Right. And so I'm at the point now where it's like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? I go somewhere and I don't like it and I'll come back.
Right.
That's it.
Or you can go somewhere else.
Exactly.
I want people to realize that you are not a tree. You can move. And not liking somewhere does not mean going back to the United States. There are how many other countries in the world that you could try if you don't like Portugal.
That's right.
You're not a tree. Just pack up your stuff and move.
That's right.
You got that right. Oh my goodness. And so with that, right, you know, the world is our oyster. And for many people, and I want to kind of stay on this thread a bit, is there's a lot of attachment, especially at this stage of life, right? I'm 48. By the time I make my move, I'll be 49. And one of the things that I see a lot of people struggle with is that attachment to identity. You know, either identity as a parent, identity as a child with aging parents, right? Or attachment to a job and a title, or an amount of money that they think that they need. And so I know Krystal had talked about, and like in the beginning, you know, the empty nest. And so, you know, Krystal, if you could like kind of share, what are some of the things that, you know, either you personally have struggled with, or, you know, the opportunities that you see in terms of detaching from identity?
Well, I have two kids and they're 2 years apart. So when my son went away first, it put me into a depression. And, you know, pets can sense when you're depressed. So it was affecting my pets too. And I didn't realize that. And during that time, I was, you know, doing my Uber driving, and I had a delivery to the hospital where my son was born. And I started to notice a pattern that I would be so down. And then when I would FaceTime with my son or I talked to him on the phone, then I would be happy again. Then some time would pass and I would be down. So I kind of Googled it. I did not know what it was. Turned out I had empty nest syndrome. And I was like, that is actually a real thing. And it kind of gave me a desire to help other empty nesters, which is something that I have been in the process of working on. But it gave me an idea to really, it gave me an epiphany. It's like, okay, I have been getting up at 6 a.m. or earlier, driving kids to school, going to back to school nights, parent teacher conferences, everything, living for my kids for 2 decades because I have 2 kids. So it's like, when my daughter leaves, what am I going to do? So I spent all of her senior year after dropping her off at school, when I leave the school, I'm asking myself every morning, okay, so what are you going to do when she leaves? How are you going to spend your day when she leaves? Who are you? Because I've always been introducing myself as, oh, I'm Daniel's mom. Oh, you're Daniel's mom. But it's like, no, yes, I am a mother, but I am Krystal. So I'm in the process of rediscovering who Krystal is. And that's what made me decide to dust off what my dreams were before. And it caused me to remember I did want to travel when they left the nest.
That is, oops,
Krystal, I wanted to piggyback on something Krystal
yeah,
had said.
go for it.
Her image was strictly as a mother. And one of the jobs as a mother is that you teach your children how to live.
Exactly.
Because your children are grown doesn't mean you're not going to keep teaching them, because this move is going to teach them that it's okay to have a dream and go after that.
Okay.
So you're teaching them another lesson on a different level. That's the key.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you will always be a mother, but you were somebody else before that. You will be somebody else going years from now. So just do it.
And that was something I had to get over also, was the guilt of leaving. Because I remember my daughter's going into her second year of college now. And I, kind of hinted at them, yeah, when you guys leave, I'm traveling the world. I'm going to be traveling. And my daughter asked me, said, well, what about when we are on holiday break? How will we see you? I said, well, just come where I'm at. Oh,
That's
okay. Yeah. It'll be a good experience for you too.
It is, you know what, there's today versus, when people did it, we always read about, the James Baldwins, and we read about the Josephine Bakers and all the people that have journeyed, in the time before or since. And they didn't have, smartphones and things like that, right? And computers. It's so much more accessible to stay connected. And so for anybody who's like agonizing and wondering like how you can make it work, it is possible to make it work. It is possible to live out your dreams, and literally, again, hashtag never too late.
Never too late.
It is never too late. And so, before we jump back into the questions, I want you all to sit with this question is, this whole idea of, the second act. So I want y'all to marinate on that, because I hear that as a theme for many of you, but I know there's a lot of questions that keep coming in, and I want to make sure we get to those as well. So let's see, ADM, let's see. Interested in cash flow concern. I know that came up in the discussion. And so what do you do for income in their new countries? So anybody who wants to speak to that, go for it.
I'm retired, so I'm living off of my retirement savings.
And I'm not quite retired, but I will probably keep working for a little bit longer. But the other thing that I'm doing is I'm doing a certification to teach English as a second language with a concentration for business people. So, because I don't want to teach children, I'm not trying to go to China or Korea and do that at this point. It's just too difficult. But if I can teach business people with the background that I have, I think that will make a viable business also. It's something that I've done as a volunteer. And so I have a passion for that. The other thing that I did that I'm hoping I can do where, when I get there, is I used to co-chair Black Girls Code, because my feeling was to get children, the boys and girls, to figure out what they're capable of based on what they love to do. I want to see if maybe I can start another organization doing that when I get there. So.
I love that. I love that. And then I'm just scrolling through, y'all.
And Krystal, I just wanted to mention, I think I saw a statistic that over 40% of Social Security checks go overseas.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, you're gonna have a bank account, right? And now, again, we're talking about like how things are different. Get direct deposit, it shows up there. You know, you can put things in a Wise account. Like there are more resources available to make it possible, whether you're going permanently, whether you're trying and testing the waters for a couple of months. You know, you might want to go for, I know Portugal's 90 days, Mexico up to 6 months. You might just decide, hey, let me go somewhere for as long as my visa allows and just try it out and see if it's right for me. You know, you can design it in any way you see fit. But I think the thing that I hear the most from each of you is this ability to kind of say, okay, I've been doing this for X amount of years of my life. Now, what if I do this thing? What if I try something different? What if I tackle the scary thing? And that is, there's that saying, right? Life exists at the end of your comfort zone. It's like when you stepped out on faith, when you got out of your comfort zone, that's when you were able to find new community, see and wake up talents that, either had been dormant for a while or that you never even knew existed, right? And so that's where I think there's so much power in what each of you have talked about. This one was I'm sorry, Anne-Marie, there we go.
Yeah. One thing I wish that I had done before I moved, and I would really recommend that people who know that they want to move abroad consider, start your side hustle now, whatever it is. If you already know that you want to start teaching English as a second language, or you want to start a side consulting business, or you want to open an online store in Etsy, whatever it is, start doing it now. There's absolutely no reason why you can't. You also can, in terms of money, I really recommend Schwab. It's been really great having a Schwab account. Start, hopefully we all already have investment accounts, but if you don't, start one now. You don't need a lot of money to do it. And if you have a Schwab brokerage account, you can open a checking account and they give you back all ATM fees at the end of every month. And there are no foreign transaction fees when you withdraw money. So these are all things you can do without moving. If you know you're planning, make that a part of your plan.
That is great advice because you can test the water and dip your toe in and kind of work out the kinks, right? Because like you said, a side hustle, you might still have a full-time job and kind of nurturing your side hustle. So you're still getting consistent income from, let's say, your 9 to 5, but you're nurturing this thing. You're figuring out, okay, what's a good client? Because not all money is good money. Or how do I do marketing? Or, so you're trying and building all of these things before the stakes are too high, especially if, you're someone who's risk averse. There are so many ways, and I love that you mentioned that, is, that side hustle can become your main hustle, or it could supplement other money that you have either from investments, which is completely different. I know in the 90s, it was like you wanted to open an investment account, you had to have a certain amount of money, or any transaction that you did buy or sell came with some outrageous fee. And now you have no fee checking, or you have, you can do, transactions, you can buy, you can sell. It's so much more accessible to have this type of lifestyle. It's so much more possible than it ever was before. So thank you so much for that. Craig wanted to know about that 70-day trip that you had there, Natalie.
So I put that together myself. I did not use an agency or anything. I just decided where I wanted to go and how much I wanted to spend. And I used Air Trex to get the ticket. But the itinerary, the accommodations, I did all that myself. And I averaged $50 a day, including hotel. So
Wow.
I stayed, yeah. So you can do it. I traveled for myself. I wasn't traveling for Instagram. So I wasn't trying to spend all of the money to do all the beautiful whatever and the floating breakfast trays and all that stuff that looks so awesome. I did not do that. And I did not look cute. I had one bag for 70 days and it was like, oh, that's that same t-shirt she had on. Oh, okay. So yeah, there was no cuteness, but it was all about discovery. So that it was wonderful, but I did that myself. And like I said, if I can do it, anybody can do it because I never had done anything like that before.
Wow. And then as a follow-up, Craig wants to know, did you go, or any of you that are looking at Portugal, I know I'll be planning to use VFS.
Yes. So it has to be done here in the States. I was thinking, all right, maybe when I go to New York, I'll just pop on over there and do my application. No, I'm in Ohio and you have to go to the consulate, at least for Portugal, you have to go to the consulate that has jurisdiction over your state. So for Ohio, the Washington, D.C. embassy of Portugal has jurisdiction over Ohio. So I have to go there. And the DC office uses VFS Global. They don't all. DC, New York, San Francisco, those are the three main ones, and they contract through VFS Global as a middleman. But New Jersey, they do their own thing. There's several states that don't. So it really depends. And even if you're going through a consulate that uses VFS, they all do stuff differently, that's such a learning curve. It's all different. And it changes like that.
Wow.
So that's really interesting.
You talked about research, and I know, Anne-Marie, you also go to, in addition to living in San Miguel, you've done solo travel as well. And I know Natalie talked about, the $50 that she kind of held herself to. So, and it's really for any of you to answer, but, we talked about there's more resources and a wealth of information. Like, what are the sites or what are the resources that you find most helpful to kind of identify either places that you want to travel and visit to, maybe potentially move to, or even to set that budget? Because I think for a lot of people, they're rooted in what they know. And, I know we have a global audience, but most people who are listening to this conversation are in the US. And so they have an idea of, like, for example, for me, I went out to lunch with some of my friends last Friday and I walked out $70 lighter. And I was like, what the hell? So they might be rooted in what things cost here and basing what their budget could be in another country on their very expensive life in the US. So anyone can answer this one. Ooh, let's see. Anne-Marie, I think you're on mute. Let me take you off mute.
If you follow me on social media, I travel. I call it solo travel for self-care because I believe it's what keeps me sane and happy. So at least every 3 months, I go somewhere. This summer, I'm traveling around Mexico because even though I lived in Mexico, I haven't been to a lot of places in Mexico that are not tourist spots. I'm very interested in seeing parts of Mexico that is not all over social media. I do not check bags when I travel. I really believe that you can be stylish and comfortable when you travel, and that you don't. And I would also add, be very careful about who you share your dreams with, who you share your plans with. What other people think about your life is none of your business. Okay? Don't make it your business, right? How other people show up on social media should also not be the focal point of how you make any decision about anything you're going to do or anywhere you're going to go. You have a budget. You can travel almost anywhere in the world with whatever your budget is. You just have to do your homework, right? And like Natalie said, leave the floating baskets to the people who want to do the floating baskets. And you might even be able to do the floating basket on a budget if you're willing to give something else up to have it. So don't think that whatever it is that you want to do when you travel, you can do if you have the right planning, right? And so I use Scott's cheap flights because I like it. And I found a lot of really good bargain flights on there. I also track my flights. Like if I know there are places, I have a list of places I want to travel to. I plan very early. That's another thing I suggest. Plan in advance. I have a list of places I want to go in the world that I haven't already been. So I track those places. And when I see a cheap flight, I book the flight, right? And I go. I work as a consultant, so I can work from anywhere in the world. So that's what I do. So don't, just plan things around summer. Look at shoulder season, fall, winter, early spring are the best times to travel if you want to travel on a budget, right? If there's summertime, somewhere in the world in January it's warm. Figure out where that is and go there. I'm serious, right? Africa is warm. Many places in Africa are warm in January, February, March, right? So go to those places, right? So there's always places that you can go. And if you track the flights early, right? If you're planning to travel next fall, you should be booking that flight now, right?
Very
if you're
true.
planning to travel in the early spring, book the flight now. Don't wait, right? So if you do it that way, you will always be able to catch good deals. There are also packages you'll find online for hotels. If you don't want to do a short-term rental and you want to stay in a hotel, I have my own opinion about that. But if you follow me, you know what it is. But keep your, be open to different things and you'll be able to do things on a budget.
That's great advice. I know I'm looking forward to this being my last winter in the Northeast. And for years after I did my solo trip to New Zealand, that was my very first trip in 2017. I did that intentionally. And I love how you talk about self-care and solo travel, because I noticed that I was never been diagnosed, but I diagnosed myself with seasonal affective disorder because I do get very low lows in the wintertime, that I felt better when I would go to, New Zealand, Australia, because they're opposite seasons.
Right.
And it was so great to just have like the sun and just that freedom. But again, it made it more accessible and attainable because I was coming on those shoulder seasons, like right before their warm weather, right? So not a lot of tourists yet. And so there's so many different ways that if you start to, play with these different sites and develop your own strategy, right? Look at your budget and realize that, again, the world is your oyster and it is never too late.
Krystal, can I
Yeah,
piggyback on what Anne-Marie
go.
and you said? Um, if there's anyone in the audience who's never traveled outside the US before, I know it is scary booking that flight for the very first time. I mean, because it's really like a jump. And I have been there. Um, it was scary for me to even book a hotel in Mexico City. I was planning to go for my birthday trip last year. I finally did make the trip, my very first international trip, this past Independence Day weekend. I went to Mexico City with my daughter for 4 days. But I'm telling you guys, once you do it the first time, it's a lot easier to do it again.
That is so true.
It was terrifying. They tell you, or I've read, if you've never solo traveled and you're a little afraid, do a mini trip first and just kind of dip your toe to see if you're like chicken like I was. But I went from never having done it to 70 days around the world. And the night before I was to leave, I had a panic attack. And I was like, okay. And I've never had a panic attack. I assume that's what it was. Like, I can't breathe. What am I thinking? I can't do this. Oh my gosh. I actually got on my laptop and, Googling, how can I get my money back? I was like, I can't do it. But I told myself, just get to Portugal. That was my first country. Just get there. Just get on, just go. And then when you get there, you can cancel the rest of the stuff if you have to. Just get there. Then I did a couple shots of whiskey and I was like, okay. I can do this.
Getting the cheat code, y'all.
I can do this. But it was, I seriously was terrifying. I really thought I can't do it. And again, that voice on my head, like, what are you thinking? You've never done this before. You haven't been to any place by yourself. What are you doing? So one step. Just get to that first step and then go from there. And it becomes so much easier, as you said, after you've done that first step, you can calm down.
Absolutely, because that first step is always the scariest. And, Anne Marie talked about it when, like not letting naysayers and other people, get in your head, or the negative self-talk that comes to you, how do you start to quell it? And there's a video that I did on our YouTube channel about that very thing. And I know someone else also asked about, scouting trips, and we'll get to that in a second. But it is important to try and, push yourself. And I love how you broke it down. It's like when you look at the big thing, the 70 days, it gets overwhelming, right? So it's just like, I loved how you just were able to kind of make it little small micro step, and then you got to where you need to be. And I always use this analogy, even for myself when I'm doing the scary thing, like starting a podcast in the middle of a pandemic, not knowing a Black expat. And then look at where we are today, right? You can do the scary thing. But I always say to myself, and this always works, is, a baby comes into this world and they see everyone around them walking and doing these things. And they might, they get ready to take that first step and they fall down. Do they say, well, it was nice, that walking thing ain't for me. I think I like this carrying around stuff, right? No, they still keep trying and trying. Same thing with language, because I know for those of us in this conversation, right? Mexico, Portugal, English is not the first language. And so a lot of times people think, oh, wow, I can't learn another language. You go to other countries, most people speak multiple languages. And so don't put like false pressure on yourself to either live up to someone else's, Instagram feed, or feel like you have to learn a language in 30 days. It isn't. A lot of times the pressure we feel is self-imposed. And so breaking free of those constructs, giving yourself room, which is something that isn't always afforded to us, but it's something, getting back to an earlier part of our discussion, is something you deserve, is so, so important. So Jean wanted to know, what does one do on a scouting trip? All right, I'll let anybody who wants to jump on this one. Oh, Aunt Marie, let me take you off mute.
Yeah, what I did, and I was very intentional about it, was I made a list of my wants and my must-haves, right? The things that I really wanted to have that was very important to me, and then things that would be nice to have. And I have a guide that I did of all the places I visited, and I kind of explained like what those things were in there, right? And so each place that I visited, I evaluated that place against those things, right? And none of them had every single thing, but I picked the place that had most of those things. One of my things was climate. I don't like being hot. Like some people want to live by the sea. I don't want to live by the sea because I don't want to be hot, especially in Mexico. And my parents are from an island, so people are always shocked to hear me say that. But I don't like humidity. I don't like heat, right? So that was one of a big thing for me, that was like the top of my list. And then, I stayed in Airbnbs or short-term rentals because I wanted to know what it was like to actually live in a neighborhood, to be in a neighborhood, to walk around. And for me, it wouldn't be the same if I was in a hotel able to call room service. So I wanted to like walk to the grocery store every day and find things that I needed on my own. So I put myself in I researched neighborhoods and I stayed in specific neighborhoods in different cities so that I could experience what that was. But the most important thing was having a list and knowing, okay, this is what I'm looking for in each of these places. So you don't end up like the dog chasing the butterfly in that movie. Like every little thing you see, you're like, oh, that's great. Because that's not why you're there, right? And living somewhere and visiting somewhere as a tourist are two different things. So I tried to put myself in an experience of, I'm living here now. I have to figure out how to get, take the bus, how to get from here to there if I wanted to do something. Does it have an Uber? It doesn't have an Uber. Well, how else can I get around if there isn't an Uber? A lot of places have other types of car services, but you have to research them to find them. Local people, talking to local people, that's critical. I really would like, if nothing else I say here, you don't remember, when you go into a country, I don't care whether it's Mexico or not. Krystal has heard me talk about how I feel about some of the things that I see in Mexico. You are coming into another country. You're a visitor. You're an immigrant. You're not an expat. You're an immigrant. Act like one. Get to know local people. You don't have to learn the language in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It takes time, but plan to learn the language, right? Learn about the culture and the history of the country. Get books, read them, right? Another thing I really recommend is walking tours. You can learn so much just doing, I do a walking tour in every city that I visit all around the world. You can learn so much by having a local person do a walking tour with you, because they will tell you about history, they'll tell you about food, you can ask them great places to eat, and they're usually not expensive places because local people don't eat at those expensive restaurants that they send the tourists to. You'll learn so much, and you can make friends that way, right? You might end up still being friends. I'm still friends with a lot of people I've done walking tours with, right? So have some curiosity. Don't move to the country and then just join into an expat bubble, right? Where the only people you talk to and the only people you know are other Americans, right? Because you're going to miss out on a whole lot if that's what you do. And then you might as well just stay in the United States if you're just going to, because you're going to see that in those groups, a lot of the problems get replicated. So if you don't broaden your circle and intentionally learn about the people that are from the country, befriend people who are from the country, you're going to not have the experience that you could have.
Exactly. There's so much texture and just, like you talked about, the curiosity. And I love a good walking tour. Ooh, I have gone on some great walking tours. And you wind up being able, especially if you have interactions with locals, teaching them something that they didn't even know, right? Because they've grown up in a town their whole life and they're used to their own rhythm, that you're like, oh, you know what? I experienced this on a walking tour. And did you know that? And they're like, really? And it gives you a richness of being able to interact with someone, to be able to take in, cultural awareness and build your cultural competency, which I think is really critical, which then allows you to have that confidence to, if that's the case, right? Learn another language and deepen, enrichen your experience in that respect.
One of my friends who's Mexican actually asked me about visiting Mazatlan the other day, because she's never been there and she's Mexican and I've been there. So she was actually asking me my opinion, which made me feel very, very good.
Yeah, that's how it was when I went to New Zealand in 2017. It was on my heart since I was a little girl growing up in the Bronx. And I got there and thought I was going to lay on the beach for 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, wherever long I was there. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to stay in this Airbnb because I agree. Like, I don't do the hotel thing. I want to be in a neighborhood. And next thing you know, I think I was there maybe 2 days or 3 days. And I wound up renting a car, and they drive on the opposite side of the road. Everything is opposite. And I was just like, no, I can do this. And next thing you know, I had my next Airbnb was several hours away, and then the next one after that. And so when I arrived at my last one, my host was like, oh, you started off there? He's like, did you know you just drove across country? And I was like, really? Like, I had no idea. But me, I've lived in the United States my whole life. I've never driven from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? Like, if I had known, but it was that just being adventurous, being daring, doing the scary thing, being afraid of heights, or like Natalie said, being on an airplane. I don't swim, but I've gone kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding, and I had decided when I was in Bali a few weeks ago, and they saw a different side of me when I was on the yacht. I saw a different side of myself, right? But that's the part of self-discovery, and that's the part that no amount of money can replace that feeling. And I have clearly less than a year before my journey. And sometimes it's those days when I can close my eyes and think about an experience that I had in another country, or people that I've met along this journey that I keep in contact with, or that I never would have met otherwise. And so that, I think, is just something that, like I said, no amount of money can ever replace. And so the big thing here is just realizing that, time is a finite commodity. And so you have to value the time that you have, whatever that is, and give yourself the gift because you are deserving of this.
So, Krishan, I also learned to say that it's not just giving yourself the gift, but when you go to another culture and you experience something with people who are from there, you're giving them a gift back because you're showing them appreciation. And you won't believe how people will react to you when they feel that you get something from their culture. That you're not trying to take it, but you get it. There's a big difference. And that the last thing that any of us want to be is a colonizer. We don't want to go someplace and make sure there's a Starbucks on every corner or a McDonald's on every corner. That is the last thing that we are trying to do. So we have to be very conscious of what it feels like to be the people on the other side. So I just think that's it's a gift for both sides. That's the thing. So.
That is so powerful because when I was in Bali a few weeks ago, and they are one of the countries that have kind of coming out of and reopening. Like I think New Zealand reopened maybe 3 weeks ago. Bali had recently reopened, and that was the thing that I kept hearing. Every Balinese person came and was like, "Oh, how long have you been in Bali?" And I say how many days, and well, how are you enjoying yourself? I'm like, I love it here. And I like, thank you so much for coming. And they said, tell your friends, tell your friends that Bali's open. And as I was having more conversation with Balinese people, they were telling me why. Because since the country was closed largely for 2.5 years, the people that had those jobs working in hospitality, in different other areas of the economy, like 90% of their economy is tourism. So when the country was closed, Indonesia was closed, it impacted Bali, harshly. And so many people got laid off, lost their jobs, had to work in the rice fields or go back into the countryside. And so now they are just starting to build back what they lost. And whether it was an Uber driver or a waitress, everyone's story was the same in that regard. And so I love what you said, because it's a gift both ways. It's me having a great experience, vacationing there at that time, but also the gift back. There was definitely a transference there. And so, yes, do not go to a country and become a colonizer. We don't want that. But understand that there is so much that you can give both ways. I love that, Lorraine. Thank you for that. That is very, very powerful. I'm going through the questions, and it's coming up. What are your thoughts on options of a chronic health condition is encountered when you get older abroad? Cognitive issues, cancer, long-term care needs. Great question, because as we get older, the reality of it is that while our minds are young, our bodies are on a different timeline sometimes, and little things can pop up. So I know I have my thoughts, but if anyone else wants to take this one, go for it.
Well, that is one of the draws for me of Portugal, or just out of the United States, because healthcare here, long-term care here, elder care here is ridiculous. I mean, it's just the prices, it can bankrupt you. And I can't speak to any other country other than Portugal, just having researched it, but their public health care system is phenomenal. The private health insurance is a fraction of what it costs here. So that was huge for me. I mean, at 62 and my family history, I know I need to be able to have access to quality care. And it was interesting to me. I don't remember the exact statistic or number now, but just in researching, the United States is not even close to the top of top healthcare in the world. Not even close. So and there are wonderful hospitals. I researched, there are gold level hospitals in Portugal, Lisbon and Porto, the larger cities, obviously, but the access is there, and it is so much more affordable, because here it's insane.
Yeah.
And I've watched Our Rich Journey,
Yes.
and they're going through their daughter was in the ER, Amon tore an Achilles, and it just confirms to me, like, yes, this is exactly where I need to be.
Yeah.
And I did an episode on healthcare and said that, you know, cancer care is free. I'm assuming that's through the public system.
Yes.
So it's incredible. So I am, because of that concern, that's why Portugal is at the top for me.
I met an American couple when I was on my scouting trip in April to Portugal, and that was their reason. They're in their 50s, and they were saying, you know, if I get cancer, I'm not going to get bankrupt here. And it was just that very reason. And I think Anne Marie had something to add as well.
Yeah, I think for Mexico, it's really important to research the specific place you're going to live because it varies so much. But one of the reasons I picked San Miguel was because of the access to really good health care and doctors and specialists, where you might not get that in other places in Mexico, even though there are a couple other states as well where you can have the access to the same thing, where it's and also the ability to just, you might not necessarily have a life-threatening illness, but as you get older and your mobility is impacted, getting help is a lot less expensive in Mexico than it would be even in the US. In the US, it's not just health, it's like everything is so much more expensive. And so living in a place like Mexico or Portugal, you can access help as well as healthcare at a more affordable rate.
Oh yeah, I'm still getting bills from my emergency surgery in February, and literally it's just like every couple of weeks I'm on the phone and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And you know, thousands of dollars for something that was, you know, out of my control, obviously. And, you know, it's ridiculous. And, you know, I'm looking at these bills from, you know, the hospital will charge you a fee, and then the doctor's going to charge you this fee, and then there's the medicine and all this stuff. And I'm looking at this bill and I don't even recognize the names of the doctors, right? I was like, I don't even recognize these people's name. And it's just amazing. And so as I got, you know, getting older, and I realized that was like my big aha, you know, one, that my nest was going to be empty next year, but two was, you know, this body, you know, is aging. Sometimes I sit too long and I'm like, ooh, okay. You know, or something else will crop up. And I wanted to have, you know, a very full, you know, second act, right? And so in order to do that, I didn't want to burn like the majority of my money paying for medical bills, right? And so it's just insane when you think about it. And you know, I too watched that video, Natalie, of Mon, you know, talking about, you know, his Achilles tear, and he paid a little over €1 a day for physical therapy. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I called my mother after I watched it because, you know, I went to Florida last year when she had knee replacement surgery. And each time she had to go to physical therapy, and she went like twice a week, it was $50 a visit. And so, you know, an 80 some odd year old woman is not working, right? She's living off a fixed income. And so it is and that's even pre-inflation, right? Now we're at 9%, whatever it is, inflation. So you can easily lose your shirt real quick in America. And so if nothing else, you know, like that's the takeaway, is like, do the math. It is not as difficult as one might think it is. And I'm just skimming through some of the comments. There's definitely a lot of appreciation for the conversation. And there's a question about Instagram handles and YouTube pages. I will update that in the description of the video for those ladies that have handles.
So,
Let's
Krystal, I just wanted
yeah,
to mention something because I just did this yesterday. I actually purchased a long-term care insurance policy years ago because my mother was very sickly, And we could, as her children, we couldn't afford to take care of her the way that she needed. So my fear was that I would bankrupt my children. And that was something I didn't want them to be, that sandwich generation. So I purchased this policy. But what I'm finding out now, and this is something, if you have something like this, double check with your agent. Some of those policies will pay overseas, but most of them won't. And so you need to find that out. And most of them have a limit as to how long they will pay for. So if you need to be in a long-term care facility, they may only pay for 3, 4, 5 years.
Mm.
You know, you probably signed on to stuff and not really aware of what it was that you were signing on to. You need to have your agent go through line by line and help you understand that. Okay. The other thing that, from what I understand, is if you get insurance when you go overseas, it needs to cover if something happens to you, can they get your body back? Can they get your ashes back? That kind of thing. Because the last thing that we want to do is, the stress of our family losing us would be one thing, but to have to put them through that would be something else. So
that is so true. And we've done 2 videos with Arnita Webb on travel insurance, and especially the latest one for 2022, what has changed. And so on the Blaxit Global website, you'll see a link in the resources section. You can get a free quote for whatever trip you need, or, you know, that gap between when you get maybe approval for your visa till where you get to your destination country, and make sure that you have, you know, layered on anything in terms of, you know, bringing your either remains, or even, you know, one of the things that I know a lot of us are in different travel groups. You know, there was an unfortunate thread that happened over the summer. A young gentleman who was maybe 30 at best went on a trip with his girlfriend and wasn't even in Mexico 24 or 48 hours, and had a catastrophic event and wound up paralyzed. And then they had to figure out, you know, how to get him treatment, and then didn't have insurance to get him back. And so, you know, the whole GoFundMe thing happened, and, you know, subsequently he unfortunately passed away. But it highlighted how critical it is to make sure you protect your life. Have travel insurance, and not the kind that just is if you lose your luggage. You know, your things have changed dramatically in the past 2+ years since the pandemic. You know, we see the horror stories about, you know, shortage at the airport and the long lines, but think about it. If you are in another country and you do not speak the language, and something happens to you and you don't have family there, what do they do? You know, so protect yourself. Your life is valuable. I can't stress that enough. Not sure if this applies to anybody on our panel, but can you travel with an animal, especially a small dog? Planning my short trips. Yes, Anne Marie is saying yes.
I traveled from, I mean, I brought my toy poodle with me to Mexico, and yeah, she's so spoiled. But anyway, she came with me to Mexico. She's actually with a friend right now because I'm in Mexico City right now. But yes, you can travel. Every country's different. So again, do your homework and find out what the rules. But I found most countries want proof of rabies, and then there might be some other shots. So be careful, because I did find in the United States, of course, capitalism runs everything. They were trying to get me to pay for health certificates and all kinds of things that I didn't actually need. All I needed to have was proof that she was up to date on her rabies shot to get into Mexico. They didn't care about anything else. But other countries might, some airlines might even say you need to have a health certificate. But I fought United on that, and they agreed that because she was up to date on her rabies and her distemper shots, that she could get on the plane, and she didn't need some formal piece of paper that said it was a health certificate. Right. So make sure that you do your own homework, because the vet will be happy to charge you hundreds of dollars, to a lot of them, to write some stupid little piece of paper when all you need is proof of rabies and probably like distemper and a couple others in order to go into a lot of countries like Europe, in the EU and so on. So make sure you understand what you need. But yeah, you can travel with your dog, and if it's a small dog, you can usually take them into the cabin with you, as long as you have the right carrier and that kind of thing with you.
Yeah, and I'm researching that as well for myself, because now I have a pandemic pup that'll be making the journey with me. But when I was originally looking at New Zealand, there's a quarantine, like I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. which isn't applicable for Portugal, although they have in the EU, they have a pet passport that I can apply for her once we get there. And then we have an article on the Blaxit Global website on, traveling with your pet abroad, but it also gives me an idea that we should have this as a YouTube follow-up on for those of us, because it's a lot to know there. And
So
this one,
Krystal, also
yeah,
remember that if you're traveling with your dog and they have to be in cargo, you need to be sure about when you're going to be traveling, because most airlines will not allow you to do that during the hot months, during the summer months. So
That's
you're
right.
going to have to plan your travel according to that too. Okay.
That is very true, especially with some dogs that have
Great short snouts.
the short snouts. And it reminds me, because I have to be mindful of time, because I have to pick up. My dog has an issue that I need to hit the vet for some medicine before the day is out. So I'm being mindful of time. What emotions, Kim asks, do you experience during the purging and the downsizing phase? Because a lot of people, and this is one of the questions that I'm supposed to answer in the season finale of the podcast on Monday, is, okay, do you move everything? And, so I'm sure you all ladies have, I see it's like a universal shaking the head.
The only thing I ask is, why do I have this? That's what I want to know. It's like, why did I buy this again?
Yeah, I call it ruthless disposal, because things are gone. I am giving things away, shredded things, went through 2,000 and some paper photos, had them all put on a USB, threw the photos away. I mean, I'm going with 2 suitcases, and I've rented a furnished place. So there are a few small things that are important to me, mementos. And so those will be coming along with me, but I'm not shipping anything. I did get, there's a Ship Your Bag. I think that's the name of the company, Ship Your Bag. So, which even for vacations could be good if you are a golfer or whatever. And so my ticket includes one checked bag and then the second checked bag for $100. So I'll do that, and then I get my carry-on. And if I need that third bag, I can have it shipped by Ship Your Bag. I think it was $224 was their quote, whereas the airline for a second checked bag was almost $300. I know. It's like, did I read that wrong? That's crazy. So that is an option for me, but I'm not taking any more. I mean, if it's not in a suitcase or on my back, it's not going.
Oh yeah.
Here's my thoughts are a little bit different. I think it's important to do what's you're most comfortable with, and every person is different, right? So just because somebody decided to get rid of all their stuff and just go with a backpack and a suitcase does not mean that that's what you have to do, right? But you have to do the analysis of the cost, right? And what's important to you and what's not. I moved things. I wish I'd taken less things, but most of the things I brought with me, I'm glad I brought with me, right? But do your homework about where you're moving. Unless you're moving to a third world country that's very remote somewhere, you don't need to bring certain things with you, like household items. But some places, electronics, you should probably bring those things with you, right? If you have favorite articles of clothing that you don't want to get rid of, don't get rid of them. Keep them. If it's going to make you bad or make you feel sad or unhappy to part with certain things, don't part with them, right? But do the analysis of whether you really want to spend money on storage. Do you have a relative whose garage you can put some things in, and then later evaluate whether you can give them away then, because some people need time, right? But don't do what's best for you. I always feel like it's important for us to get information from all of these sources, but in order for this to ultimately be something that you feel good about, not just in the short term or the long term, you have to know yourself and do what's best for you.
That is great advice. And so this one is one I'm not surprised to see pop up. So I don't know if it applies to anybody on the panel, or if you're like me, who has been joyfully single for many years, but am looking forward to dating abroad. So whether it applies to you now and you have experience dating in these international streets, or have a perspective of what you'd like to do, anybody can take this one.
I was actually thinking about this last night, and what occurred to me, I'm sorry, I was just thinking about this last night, and what occurred to me was that this process is going to be pretty stressful in a good and a bad way. And so I want to be settled before I start bringing people into my circle. Because otherwise I'll let people in that probably shouldn't be there because I'm not clear on who I am, because there are going to be days where you're going to get up and it's like, I think, Krystal, you showed on it's like, I can't get the washing machine to work. You know,
Yes.
like that. I don't know how to turn on the oven. I don't want to go to the grocery store. So it's like, yeah, that's a nice thing to consider, but I want to be more settled in myself first before I worry about that. So.
Yeah, know thyself. And that's a great point. It's like, thinking about one, having the awareness, and two, knowing that you are in a land where everything is new. And so all the senses are firing. And because of that, you might not have the filter that you need to see, a situation or a person in the right lens. I love that. And I think, Anne-Marie, you had something you wanted to say to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice and a great way to go if you're moving abroad. I think the dating can wait. I always tell my younger cousins, men are like buses. There's always another one coming. No offense to the men in the group, but that's my perspective. And so that will always be there. And I do think you do have to be careful, because I think you have to understand the culture of the country. You have to understand the differences. And there are a lot of differences. I know for sure in Mexico, and I've dated in Europe as well. I think I date for entertainment. I am not looking for a life partner at this point in my life. I travel a lot. I like my life the way it is. And so I'm not looking, you really have to be clear about why you want to be dating, whether it's in the US or anywhere else. But I think especially abroad, I think it's better to kind of get to know the place that you're moving to and get settled. And then if, you want to have someone buy you a drink from time to time or whatever, that's fine. But I think that's the best way to go, because it is different in a lot of ways, not good or bad, but it's different.
And so I know we are coming up on time, and I want to be respectful of my panelists since they are carving out time on their weekend. So I'm going to just skim through the comments. And so just as a follow-up, I'll put the information of the ladies that have social handles there. I know someone had asked about additional questions related to like either brokers or, insurance providers, but, you can follow up with the guest directly if you have a specific question. In terms of comprehensive travel insurance, as I mentioned, you can head to our website and click under the resources section. There is information there. In terms of where our ladies are joining from. So Anne-Marie is in Mexico City, and the rest of us are stateside in different states. And let's see, let's end on this one question. Let me go back to it. Here we go. I'll summarize it, this one. So what's the one thing that you noticed in that they're saying in your new location, but for some of us, we haven't actually made the location, so I'll rephrase it. But what is something that is signaling to you that the place that you either are in, like in the case of Anne-Marie, where you've chosen, or you are journeying to, that makes it all worth it for you? So let's start with Anne-Marie, because you are in Mexico.
I mean, I wake up every single day and I get to decide what kind of day I'm going to have. Okay. I'm my own boss. I get up every day. I go sit on my rooftop and have my coffee. I have an actual rooftop with an amazing view. And I'm moving actually this Friday to a place with an even more amazing view
Wow.
than the place I currently have, right? For less. So, you know, every single day when I get up, I am reminded of how lucky I am and how blessed I am that I chose myself, right? This isn't something that someone else gave me. It's something that I gave to myself. And so I would just encourage everybody to choose yourself, and that it's okay to choose yourself, and that other people don't have to understand your choices, and their understanding is not your problem. It's more important for you to understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then to get about the business of doing it.
Amen. Amen. And Lorraine.
Let's see. So I'm not in Portugal yet, but one of the reasons why it's so attractive to me is I grew up in Manhattan, and a walking lifestyle makes so much sense to me. I never saw a mall until I was probably 30. I didn't understand it. I still don't. I don't get why people think that's entertainment, but okay, that's you. But for me, to be able to walk to where I want to go to the market and know the people at the store instead of going to Publix or Kroger's, and it's like, I can't tell you one clerk from another. I want a community. I was used to seeing real diversity, and not just seeing different people, but having friends that were from different countries and different backgrounds and really knowing who they were. And that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing. I think Portugal has enough of that vibe for me. And we'll see when I get there. Like, you know, like you said, Anne Marie, that may not be the place. It could be somewhere else, but that's attractive to me. So.
Thank you for that. Natalie.
For me, it's being able to, I guess maybe it's the water bear Aquarian in me, but being able to be on the ocean and hearing those waves in a temperate climate that is not hot and humid with bugs and big old snakes and stuff. So that's it for me. I need water, and I'm able to do that in Portugal, whereas here, living in a coastal home is not something I could afford, and I don't want to deal with hurricanes. So.
Same. Same. And Krystal, how about you?
Well, actually, I'm not at the expat stage. I am going to travel as a tourist first to see where, would be good for me. I'm starting in Mexico. The draw from Mexico was that there were Afro Mexicans. I found that to be very intriguing. And so one of the reasons why I'm looking to travel there is to meet and learn about the African diaspora in other countries who were brought here, in the Americas. And also during my travels to not only Mexico, but different parts of the world, is to let them know, meaning the locals, that give them a different view of who we are other than what has been shown to them. Because typically when they see, and I'm guessing particularly in Africa, when they see Americans, they immediately think of white. They're not thinking of people who look like us. When they see us, they see someone in a hip hop video or someone who's very famous or someone who's athletic. But we're neither of that. And we're just like other Americans who have a desire to travel or have a desire to live where we're treated, better than where we are.
That is so true. And I think, we go where we, as members of the African diaspora, really, we can journey all over this world, right? There's no place that we shouldn't inhabit or couldn't inhabit if we are called to do so. And so, this is great to have, conversations like this to understand, what it's like in different places. But definitely take the opportunity, meet different people, get in these communities, whether it's Blaxit Global Passport or the expat app, or get in where you fit in, right? And then get the information that you need. And you don't have to just keep going down a rabbit hole of questions, right? Get enough to satisfy, that initial curiosity, but then buy that plane ticket, right? And get out and see the world, because there's so much more that we, even collectively, with all of the information that was shared here today. And again, I am in deep gratitude to each one of my panelists today for their time, energy, expertise, and richness of discussion. But there is but so much that we can talk about in a session, right? It's just really scratching the surface, and everybody's experience is going to be different. And so what lights one person up isn't going to light someone else up. And so you have to go and do your due diligence and get out there, because there is a whole life that is waiting for you. And so I want to, again, like I said, thank my panelists for this wonderful discussion. Thank all of you who are watching live and in the future. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe to the Blaxit Global podcast. You'll want to stay tuned to the Blaxit Global YouTube channel, primarily because when the show goes in hiatus, the podcast, I will be doing more lives. I did tease that I had something that I wanted to announce toward the end. And so I want to take an opportunity before I forget, is that we are launching next month, at the end of next month, at the end of September, the Blaxit Global Move Abroad course. And so it is open for pre-sale. The pre-sale price is the price that you can get it. That is actually going to be more expensive after September 7th. So after Labor Day, the price goes up. So I will drop the link here if you're interested in partaking of that opportunity, but definitely subscribe and join us in our new community as well on YouTube, where I'll be sharing more about my travel and exploits. And as a member of the Blaxit Global YouTube channel, you'll get to have like some behind the scenes. We'll maybe do an extended series when we have conversations like this in the future. But in summary, I just, again, am in deep gratitude to each of you ladies for giving your time and your authenticity and just being amazingly inspiring human beings. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, yes, yes. So I will drop those handles, and we will see you soon. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.